Afternoon folks, it's a Bobby Dazzler of a day outside. Let's have a look. Oof. That sun is shining. And the apple tree is producing. I'm going to get a good crop this year. It's already started dropping. I'm getting lots of these and I normally throw them away. There's another. At the back of the house I've got a plum tree that does exactly the same thing, and that's been dropping too. Little gooseberry bush, not got anything on it, but down here, there we go, windfall plum. And another. Now they don't look like much, but can I brew with them? So this is 3 days worth that have dropped off, and this is only going to pick up as time goes on. More and more will fall. So I've got my 3 days worth of apples and plums here. I'm just out of interest going to weigh them to see what is being shed currently. So these scales have already been zeroed. So that's 596 grams in 3 days, or 200 grams of fruit per day. So say I've got 596 grams, let's just say for argument's sake 600 grams. I'm going to steam this and remove the good stuff from the bad stuff. As in, I'm going to get the pips out, the stalks out, etc. That will go back on the garden as compost. And then the good stuff that's left behind is eventually going to go into some wine. So it's simply a case of putting that into this pan just here. I've got a very small amount of water now in here. I'm just going to add that in. I'm going to put the lid on. And this is a special lid for basting so it drips back down. And I'm going to put that ring on very, very low. And just leave it. So we'll have a look at it in a bit and see what it's like. Catch you then. Right, next up from the garden, it's the gooseberries, the goosgogs. I've got 3 bushes, 2 of them have fruited this year. So I'm going to take the fruit off them and weigh that. Okay, that's what I've picked so far gooseberry wise, so that's not looking too bad. So apologies about the background noise anyway. I've got the dishwasher on and you can see I've done a load of flapjack biscuits. You know, busy day as usual. Let's just have a look in here. And these smell very good actually. Now let me just manipulate them a little bit. So yeah, they're not ready to break down yet. But they won't be long, put it that way. Okay, let's get in the front garden to the big gooseberry bush. There's loads on that one. So this is the bigger bush and there are tons on it. It's going to take me a little while to do this. I'll come back to you when I've stripped it. So that is the gooseberries from the front bush and the back bush. I need to wash and weigh them, but I'm just going to go back and have a look at how the apple and plums are doing. I think they are pretty much done. Almost mushy. I'll tell you what, 5 more minutes. Right, I'm just going to zero the scales. Let's see how many gooseberries I've got. That is 1,383 grams of gooseberries, almost 1.4 kilos. And just to point out to you, when picking gooseberries, you are going to get some pain. Ouch, ouch. Unfortunately, they are spiky. That's what happens. Okay, I'm going to turn the apple and the plums off. They're definitely done. They've even started to caramelise a little bit on the bottom. What I need to do is just get them in a nice mushy and mashable state. Right, so I'm going to take what's in the pan and put it into this sieve. So I've got the sieve on a saucepan, big wooden spoon, saucepan, and I'm going to work what's in there, in the sieve, through, so all the rubbish that I don't want stays behind in the sieve, and all the fleshy stuff that I do want gets pushed through. So this is the labour intensive, laborious part of this kind of brewing. Same for jam making, exactly the same. I'll come back to you when I've done this bit. So that is the net result of that effort. That is the apple and plum flesh that's been pulped and pushed through the sieve. And that's all the stuff that I don't want, which is going to go on the garden as compost. So putting that mixture on the weighing scales now, what started off as 596 grams is now 348 grams. I'm going to prepare the gooseberries next in exactly the same way, but what I'm actually looking for is 2 kilograms of pulp per gallon, so I've got a lot of flavour going in there. So it's going to take me a few more days to get some more apples and plums that are windfall before I can carry on with this wine fully, but I'll do the gooseberries now anyway. Okay, so it's exactly the same process with the gooseberries. I've got them in a wok this time. I'm putting a glass lid on that so I can see what's going on. I'm putting the heat on and I'll come back to them in a bit. So it's about 40 minutes later. Steamy. And these are now nice and soft. So I'm just going to push these through the sieve in exactly the same way that I did the apple and the plums, and you'll see that this pan of gooseberries is way more liquidy than the last one. Now I did put more liquid in the bottom, admittedly, but the gooseberries give off a heck of a lot more liquid. So it's exactly the same procedure as last time, just pouring the gooseberries right now into the sieve. You can hear them going through into the pan. Spoon and push the gooseberries through. I'll come back to you in about 10 minutes when I've done. See you then. So this time there's a lot less left to go into compost, and there's a lot more liquid and flesh which is going to go into the wine. So rather than weigh what I've got in the pan because I've added water to it, that wouldn't really work. What I'll weigh is what I'm not going to continue using. So if I put that on here, which I've zeroed, so I've removed 136 grams only of wastage from what was originally there with the gooseberries. 1.4 kilos, I believe. I could be wrong actually. In fact, I can't check because it's on the camera, but let's just say I'll put a subtitle up now to explain. Anyway, when the gooseberry puree has cooled down, it's going in a plastic tub and it's going in the fridge along with the apple and plum stuff. I'm going to leave that until I've got enough to make a gallon. So I want to get 2 kilos of puree. So I need about another 500 grams or so I'll be happy with. So I'll come back to you when I've got all my fruit in place and I'm ready to move to the next step. So I'll see you in a couple of days. Hey folks, it's preparation day 2 because I've now got all of my fruit together. It's all pulverised, it's all ready to be made into wine. Let me show you. So this is the gooseberry that you previously saw. This is the apple and plums that you previously saw with some more apples in there. No more plums actually because they were quite bitter, and I've supplemented them with some garden strawberries, some garden blackcurrants and some garden rhubarb. So this wine has evolved into a summer fruit 2023 wine from all of the above. So plus the gooseberries obviously from last week. So now I need to filter them and get the liquid away from the solids. So this is how I'm going to separate the liquid from the solid. I've got a muslin cloth sitting inside a colander, which is a colander sieve, and sitting inside a bigger colander, sitting inside my big pan. And what I'm going to do is pour my liquid into here and leave it to strain. It literally is as simple as that. So let's have one big pour. So this is everything apart from the gooseberries which are in the other tub. There are actually some gooseberries in this as well. They've helped it to become a red colour along with the blackcurrants and the strawberries, because another week of the gooseberries being on the bushes has made them even redder than what they were and juicier. So let's get every last bit out, don't want to waste anything. So that's the first lot of fruit in, and hopefully you can hear that dripping. So on top of that I'm going to add my gooseberries. These are a lot more liquidy, having been in the fridge for the best part of a week. And they'll all go in just nicely. The solids that I'm going to be left with are completely usable, and I will use them in either to make a sauce or to make some kind of jam or something with them. It definitely, I won't be throwing those solids away because these have been pulverised, so it's all decent flesh. No hard bits. So here's what I've got, and now it's simply a case of playing the waiting game. So I'm going to come back to you tomorrow when it's time to put all of this together and to make the wine with the rest of the ingredients. So I'll catch you then. Hey folks, it's the next day and it's now time to get all this lot put together. So here's the key ingredients that's going into today's brew. So you have already seen all the fruit matter here. So I've had that pressing overnight. I'm going to lift the colander out. This is the liquid, which is going to form the majority of the must, but I'm going to be supplementing that with a couple of litres of spring water. I'm going to be pumping the ABV up with 800 grams of dextrose monohydrate brewing sugar. I'll be adding a little bit of pectolase to try and break down any pectic enzymes in there so it will be a clearer brew. My yeast of choice is going to be Lalvin EC-1118 yeast for champagne, sparkling wine and cider. Great stuff. And I'll be giving that a little bit of extra to feed on with some nutrient. And my fermentation vessel of choice today is the classic demijohn, the 1 gallon 4.54 litre Warhorse. I'm going to begin by transferring my fruit juice into a slightly smaller pan. It's just a straightforward pour. I'm using a smaller pan because it's more accurate to the size of the demijohn, so I can gauge it better. Plus it's got a thicker base and I want this to heat through and I don't want it to burn on the bottom, which this thin pan sometimes does. So there's the liquid in my smaller pan. So I've now got the pan on the ring. The ring's currently off, but I'm going to add 2 litres of still spring water. Actually, I won't add the full 2 litres to begin with, just in case I go over. I'll just add half of it for now, 1 litre. And then I can always top up afterwards. Next, I need to add the brew sugar. And that's all in there. And using a plastic spoon, I'm just going to give this a nice stir and mix around to ensure that the sugar isn't sticking to the bottom of the pan. That certainly won't do. And what I want to do now is apply a little bit of heat to this. I want to bring it up to about 80 to 90 degrees Celsius, just pre-boil or pre-simmer, so it pasteurises in case there's any contaminants got into there. And then I'll let it cool down before it goes into the demijohn. Adding heat will also dissolve the brew sugar, which in all honesty does dissolve fairly easily, I have to say. So gas goes on and heat goes on. So I'm going to pop a lid on the pan and I'll come back to you when this has come up to temperature and it's about 80 to 90 degrees Celsius. So I'll see you then. Okay, we can see that that's hot and this is definitely in the right temperature zone now. In fact, I'm going to turn the heat completely off this. I'm going to move the pan onto a cold ring, the back, and I'm going to put a mesh on top to allow the heat to dissipate. Now there's not much else I can do with this for now, although there is one thing that I can do, and that is to add a nice generous heaped dessert spoonful of pectolase into that. I'll leave this on there now. That lets the heat out. I'm going to come back to this in about 4 or 5 hours time, get it in the demijohn. So I'll see you then. Hey folks, it's a good 5 hours later and what is in the pan is now just warm. It's by no means hot. There's a nice colour to it and the fruit flesh that was left in the top of the muslin cloth is in there with some sugar in the slow cooker, and I'm just making some jam off that. I'll leave that overnight, jamming away. Right, so now I need to get that out of there and into demi. So I've got demi here on the counter, demi Moore. I'm just going to stick a bit of water in the bottom just to protect it in case it is hotter than I think in there. I don't think it's that hot though. And now for the big dramatic pour. hopefully not too dramatic. Nice and syrupy. I can see the constituency as it goes in there. And there we go. So I'm going to put a bit more water in now just to top it up. And yes, the demijohn will be overfilled. I'm not bothered. Overfilling the demijohn simply means that I might need to clean out an airlock or put a blow-off pipe in. It's nae bother. In fact, that 2 litres of water has gone in there. So there we go. Right, I give that a stir with a meat fork. It just fits in there nicely. And it means I can get it stirring round so that all those liquids are mixed together, because I need to take an original gravity reading and I need it to be accurate. So here's my hydrometer tube with the funnel. I'm going to pour 100ml in here. This is not going to go back in, so I have reduced the capacity now very slightly in there. It won't make much difference, but every little helps. So this is currently too warm for me to take the gravity. I'm going to put this in the fridge, then I'm going to come back to you to get the dry ingredients in there. So it's time to get the dry ingredients in there. So I'm going to begin with the yeast nutrient. So I'm just going to give that a bit of a break up. It's quite crystalline. Just show you that, you can see there. So that's going to go straight into a new funnel, a dry funnel, because I don't want it to stick around the funnel. Then change the spoon, because you don't want to put the nutrient spoon into the yeast, because if you get any nutrient in the yeast, then you might activate it. So with a new spoon, I'm going to get some Lalvin EC-1118 yeast in there. So there is a slightly rounded teaspoon, and for good luck, another half a teaspoon. And that's just going to float on top and work its way in au naturel. Next, I'm going to put my airlock in the top of the demijohn. And like I said, if it does blow through, and there's a very good chance it will, it don't matter. I'll just take the airlock out, wash it out, and either replace it or put a blow-off pipe in. I don't worry about stuff like that. Now I need to give my demijohn a little shower, because it's covered in sticky residue. And we don't like sticky demijohns, and we don't like sticky bottles. In fact, we're not right keen on sticky residue, in all honesty. Unless we're drinking it, then it's fine. So here is the story so far. That's not a Krausen ring, by the way. That's just from me pouring it in there. I need to wait for what's in the hydrometer jar to cool down to 20 degrees Celsius before I can take the original gravity. Once I've done that, I'll come back to you. See you then. Okay, the must is down to 20 degrees Celsius. Time to take the original gravity. So in goes the hydrometer. Ooh, buoyant. And it's slightly less than what I was anticipating it would be, but I can live with it. It's 1.078. So I'm probably going to be looking at 11 to 12%. Fingers crossed. So that is my demijohn now labelled up, and it's a case of playing the waiting game for fermentation to begin. So I'll come back to you with an update tomorrow, when hopefully there'll be some bubbles in the airlock because fermentation has begun. See you then. So it's the next morning, and we've got a little bit excited. Oh yes, a classic blowout. Like I previously said, it's no bother. There's the airlock. Just put the tap on, let it rinse through, turn it over, do the other side, and back again. Shake out the excess water, and we've got one clean airlock. I'll pop it back in, but I am expecting it to blow through again. No bothers. And indeed, within 20 seconds of it going back in, you can see the reflux starting. So 1 hour later, I'm now using this setup. As predicted, it did blow through again. So I fit the blow-off pipe in. You can see that the foam is refluxing through that. It will go into that bottle, which has got water in, acting as a big airlock. But because I've got the bottle in a jug, if it does fill the bottle up and flood out, then I'm not going to make a mess on the floor. This is a tidy enough setup, and I'll leave it like this for a few days before reverting back to a standard airlock, which is exactly what I did with this one just here, which is a few weeks older. So I'll come back to you when the fermentation's over. There's not really going to be anything else exciting to tell you, so I'll see you when it comes to either clearing or bottling. Good afternoon from the kitchen, folks. It's a summer fruit wine update because today I'm going to be hopefully clearing it, with findings. This is Brew Day 18. Let's have a look at it. And here it is. I've just put it on the windowsill so it's not being stood in sunshine. It's not clear, but it's definitely got a bit of opaqueness to it. There's a distinct sediment line at the bottom and there's nothing going on in the airlock, so fermentation is effectively over for now. So what I'm going to do is get it out of the top demijohn, into the demijohn in the sink with a siphoning tube, and I'm going to add my findings in there and hopefully clear it. So it's bung out, siphoning tube goes in, and I'm going to push the tube so it's just above the sediment line. So the end of the tube is just there. I will pick up a bit of sediment, but it doesn't really matter. Let's crack on. And in it goes. Smells very nice, very winey. That's what you need. Okay, so I'm now halfway down the demijohn into there, so I'm going to add a dribble of Wine Findings A. This is Clear It Wine Findings from Young's. So it's bottle A, and then an hour later, bottle B. And there we go, bubbles in the siphoning tube tell us that that is done. So I've now transferred from there to here with findings A. Airlock goes back in. I'm going to leave this for an hour and then I want to take it back out of there into the original demijohn and add findings B. So I'll catch you in an hour's time. Hey folks, an hour has passed and now it's time to add findings B. So this time I'm not going to siphon it, it's going to be a straightforward pour through a funnel. When I get halfway in, I'll add findings B. So findings B, same amount as findings A, just like that. That'll do. So airlock goes back in. I'm just giving the outside of the demijohn a little rinse. So all that's left to do now is play the waiting game. They'll either work or they won't work. The last time I did it, they didn't work, but the few times before that, they have worked. You never know. Let's wait and see. I'll give you an update tomorrow or in a couple of days' time. All right, catch you later, folks. Good morning from the kitchen, folks. It's Brew Day 21 for my summer fruit stroke gooseberry wine. Let's have a look what them findings did. And they did absolutely nothing. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame really, but they haven't done what I need them to do. So this is down to one of two things. It's either the gooseberries that simply don't react well to findings, or findings are duff. Now, I've had another brew where the findings haven't cleared them as well, but again, I used white currants in that one, and I'd never used white currants before, so it's possible that some fruit doesn't react as well to findings as what others do. History tells me that the apple and the rhubarb usually does do okay, but on this occasion, I've got a cloudy drink, and I don't want to drink cloudy wine. So as you can see, I've got a bit of space here. Now it's an annoying space. It's too small for me to open a litre of apple juice, but it's too big for me to be comfortable in terms of oxidisation if I'm leaving this in here for a prolonged period. So I am leaving it in the demijohn, but I need to reduce the airspace that's in there, and I'm going to do so by adding glass beads. So these glass beads are actually aquarium beads, but they are also marked as food safe. You can use them in food things as well for display and so forth. So I'm just going to put half of this jar in this pan of water, and I'm going to put the heat on. And I want to let these beads come to a boil so that they're completely sterilised and clean before moving to the next step. So once they're boiling, I'll come back to you. Right, I think I can safely say my glass beads are boiling, so let's get that turned off. And I'm going to pour my beads into a colander in the sink. And then just in case there's any shards of glass in there, in case any of these cracked, I'm just going to give them a little rinse and shake them around in the colander. Now with clean and washed hands, it's simply a case of adding the beads into the demijohn. I'll come back to you when they're all in there. Okay, that's all the glass beads that I need in there, and you can see now that there's barely any headspace whatsoever. So that means I'm quite confident now to leave this and let this clear naturally. I'm just going to pick this up, and I don't know if you can see the beads at the bottom, but they are down there, some on that side just there. Anyway, I'll come back to you in a little while. Hopefully this will clear. If it doesn't, it doesn't. If it does, it does, and I'll be happy. If it doesn't, well, cloudy wine. Right, see you in a bit. Good very early morning from the kitchen, folks. This is brew day 124 for my summer fruits wine, and today I'm going to bottle it. And it's not great news in terms of appearance. As you can see just there, it's still cloudy, but I'm actually sick of looking at it. Now there is some sediment amongst the glass beads that I put in there, so I'm going to bottle it from about that level onwards, and I'm expecting to get 5 bottles out of there. But essentially, I'm going to have a cloudy wine. I'm just going to live with it. So before I begin, I need to add some sugar into each of these bottles. So this much sugar in here represents a nice rounded teaspoonful. Any yeast which is left in suspension in there, when it finds this sugar, it will break it apart and it will create a very fractional secondary fermentation in the bottle. That will create a release of CO2, and as a result of that CO2, pressure will build up, which will give my wine a sparkle. That's the plan anyway, fingers crossed. So it's bung out. Siphoning tube goes in, and I'm going to adjust the height or the depth of the tube via the black clip at the top. It's currently just there. I want it down a little bit further. That will do. So the first bit that comes out is very likely to be sedimenty, but that's going to go into the hydrometer tube. As an extra safety feature today, I'm also going to be bottling through this sieve, just in case there's any glass shards from the beads that are in there. There shouldn't be, but I don't want to risk getting glass in my wine. So this is a two-handed job. It's going to be difficult filming and doing this, so there won't be as much camera work as there normally is. So let's crack on. Whoa. Well, that went all over my face. Just filled the hydrometer tube and I'm now into the first bottle. Easier said than done through the sieve, but it's going. It's dry, but it's very fruity. Gooseberry. It really comes through. Yeah, there's definite fruity taste there. I think it's going to be quite a nice wine, actually. So that's the first bottle done, and I'm on to the second bottle now. I can see in the first bottle that I've filled that there's already a reaction to the sugar. I'm getting a tiny ring of bubbles at the top of the bottle. That's a good sign. And on to the next one. So I'm on bottle number 3 now. And bottle number 4. I've slightly overfilled all of my bottles, not on purpose. I'll end up tipping a bit out, probably into the 5th bottle just to get it full. You can see a slight ring around the edge of that bottle just there, which is a good sign in terms of carbonation. And on to the last bottle. So this should be about right, 5 bottles I think. I'm not going to have, definitely not going to have 6. And I'm hoping there is enough for 5 bottles, but if there's not, I can always add a little bit from the hydrometer tube in there. And that's just going to be spot on. We've got bubbles in the siphoning tube, so that's over, and it's just filled the last bottle up, so that's great. Just release what's in the tube. So just looking in the mesh, I can't see any glass in there, but it was a safety thing, and it was the right thing to do, to be honest. There's what's left in the bottom of the demijohn. Right, it's time to bung and cage my bottles. I'm only going to demonstrate this once. I've got it to do 5 times. Here's my plastic bungs. They're softening in very hot water, about 90 degrees Celsius water. Gives them a final clean, and it means they're malleable for pushing in. Also means I burn my fingers. Ow. So it's just a case of pushing it in, like so. So when the yeast that's left in suspension in there finds that bit of sugar in the bottom and the secondary fermentation takes place that leads to carbonation, pressure builds up, that would fly out without a cage. So the cage goes on top of the bottle pull it down tight and twist it over and keep twisting it until it's really snug and secure. And these are great cages. These are Chimay Blue bottle cages, actually, from my good friend Thomas at Woodside Micropub. And there you go. That doesn't look too bad. That's one safely secured bottle. I've got another 4 to do. I'll come back to you when I've done them. So that's all my bottles in the sink, bunged and caged. I'm going to give them a little rinse off. Just get all the stickiness off the outside. So just while the bottles are drying off, let's take the final gravity. So in goes the hydrometer. And I'm looking at a final gravity of 0.998. So let's work out the final alcohol by volume for this brew. So I started with an original gravity of 1.078. I deduct from that the final gravity of 0.998, and that equals 0.08. And then I multiply this figure by 131.25, and that equals 10.5%. And that is a decent ABV for wine, so I'm happy with that. So while those bottles are drying off, let's make some labels for them. So I've got this Fomamo Bluetooth printer. I can't remember the model, but maybe you can read that on there or maybe not. Just an Amazon purchase, but it is quite effective for doing the job. So there's the label made up on Printmaster, which is the app which comes with the printer. Summer Garden Fruit Wine, 17th of November 2023, which is the bottling date, 10.5% ABV, 5 copies, print now. It's pretty swanky, isn't it? Okay, I'm going to get my labels on the bottles, nice and straightforward. They're only very small labels, but that's fine. It means there's less plastic waste because the labels are plasticised, which is why I've opted for smaller ones. So I'll just get that on there. And there's one done. I've got the others to do. Once I've got them all done and got them in place for conditioning, I'll come back to you. So welcome to the living room, folks. This is where my Summer Fruits Garden wine is going to condition. It's up here on top of my drinks cabinet, and you can see that there's other wines and ciders and so forth next to it. The drinks cabinet is currently at 17.8 degrees Celsius, and it is 6:10 in the morning. So if it's that temperature at this time, that's not doing too badly. The conditioning process will allow the carbonation to happen and the flavour to develop. So what I'm expecting is this is going to take about 6 weeks, maybe 2 months to condition, with it being autumn, winter now. So I will be opening this sometime in early January. So I'll catch you then for the next part of the film. Good evening from the kitchen, folks. Gosh, it's been a while since I've done one of these, but this is brew day 187 for my Summer Fruits Garden wine, which I started making in July 2023. It's now January 2024. Started making it in ridiculously hot temperatures. It's freezing cold outside, -1, and there's a layer of frost on the ground like this. Well, what a better time to open a wine, eh? So let's get into this and see what it's like. So I'll just get the cage off. Now I can see, looking at the bung, that it has raised ever so slightly. I am hopeful of a sparkle, but there's never a guarantee, and I'm really not sure actually. Just to also point out, it never did clear. It's a pectin haze, I think, and there's not much I can do about that. So, am I going to get a pop? It was no to write home about, was it? It wasn't really a pop, it was more of a fart. Let's be honest with it. Okay, let's see what it's like in the glass. So, oh, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. There is a definite sparkle. Now, it's not a mad champagne bubbly sparkle, but it's there. And I've got wine that's got a head on it. It's different. Okay, let's give it a nifter and a snifter. It does smell extremely fruity. Really nice, actually. I can't place any of the fruits that are in it from the smell. It's almost a bit like a raspberry-ish smell. If anything, there's a berry smell in there. What was in it? I've forgotten myself. I can't even remember. A bit of all sorts. Okay, let's see what it tastes like. Definite sparkle. It's nice. It's quite creamy on the palate. I was not expecting that. It almost tastes like there's some cordial in there. That is weird. There isn't any cordial in there. It's weirdly nice. Has aging this and leaving it for so long had a really, really positive effect? Or was it just a good fruit combo? That is extraordinarily drinkable. It's one of the nicest tasting wines I've ever made. It's a pity that it's, well, not cloudy, but you know, there's that haze in there. The ABV is 10.5%. And honestly, I'm going to go out as far as to say that this is a medium wine. It's not medium dry, it's a medium. That is ridiculously drinkable. And at 10.5%, scary. You could down that like you would cider without realising it. It does not taste 10.5%. Well, I've got to say that this has been an absolute victory. I was not expecting it at all. I was thinking it was going to be a bit rubbish. Do you know what? I was wrong. It's very, very nice. So before I go, I need to get the picture for the front of the film. I've still not thought of an imaginative way to do a picture for the front of the film apart from this one. So that's what I'm going to do. Right, folks, I am really, really going to enjoy this tonight. So as always, it's been a pleasure making the film. And I'll catch you on the next one, whatever that may be. Let's face it, it's probably going to be a cooking one next week, but the week after, we're back to brews. Right, catch you then. See you later, folks. The film that you've just watched is a Moss Home and Garden production. You can find more by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. I'd just like to say thank you very much for supporting my YouTube channel and for watching my films. It really is very much appreciated. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel in order to receive future updates about the home and garden films which I upload. You can find my YouTube channel by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. Please click on the red subscribe button. When you've done that, a little bell will appear. If you press that also, then you'll get future updates about the films which I upload. If you like my films, if you like my style of filming, then you might also like my travel channel, which you will find by going to youtube.com/Stuart Moss or type in www.mosstravel.tv. Again, if you could subscribe to that channel, it would be hugely appreciated. If you'd like to get Moss Home and Garden updates on Facebook, then please open Facebook and do a search for Moss Home and Garden, and you will find the page. If you like the page, then you will get future updates on there. And if you'd like to connect on Instagram for home, garden and travel photography, as well as some stories, then my username is StuMoss, STUMOSS. If you'd like to connect on Twitter, then my username is @StuartMoss. And if you'd like to contact me about film usage or any other issue, please just email me on stewmosshomegarden@gmail.com. Once again, thank you very much for supporting my channel, for watching my films. I do appreciate it. I'd just like you all to have a great day.